Hi, grade 7s. We're going to carry on working through section A comprehension. We're going to be looking at questions 6 to 12. You should have them in your textbook, but just in case you haven't, I have a copy of them over there for you if you want to pause and have a look. Right, we're going to be starting with question 6. Probably the best way to work through this memorandum is to pause when you get to the answer or to the mark, and then to do a correction or elaboration. What do they have to be careful to avoid? Right. So when you're answering the question, the best way to write a good quality full sentence in your answer is to put the question in the answer. So can you see how part of the question is to be careful to avoid? They had to be careful to avoid losing their footing, or you could have said they had to be careful to avoid losing their balance and falling down the mountain or slipping down the mountain. You could have worded this in your own way, as long as the point is that they were careful not to fall down the mountain. Right, there's one mark for that answer. Number 7, trapped in the tent. They want to know what was their biggest challenge. Not just the biggest challenge in their adventure, but while they were trapped in the tent. You must answer in full sentences. You could have mentioned any of these answers that I'm about to tell you. Again, put the answer in the question. See how the question says trapped in the tent and their biggest challenge. Trapped in the tent, their biggest challenge was, you could have said space, water, and food. You could have said that they had to make sure that they saved enough fuel, or food, or water to last them. So if you answered any one of these, in your own words is fine, as long as you've mentioned a challenge, not the challenges of falling down the mountain or the challenges of making it back down, but that happened when they were trapped in the tent. All right, question 8. But caves can be difficult to find at the best of times means caves are A, sometimes, usually difficult to find. Caves are B, never, difficult to find, always difficult to find, or usually difficult to find. I'm going to stop you quickly because I want to quickly test if you know what punctuation marks are involved in this question. So those ones that I've just highlighted now, those are quotation marks. We sometimes call them inverted commas. And you see the word inverted. To invert something means to turn something upside down. So can you see I've got two little commas? If we turn them upside down, they become inverted, and we call them inverted commas. They no longer play the job of a comma, they now have a different role to show a quotation, direct speech. Alright, can you see how those commas are inverted? Good. I've highlighted another punctuation mark over there. Can you see it in blue? Alright. Sometimes I hear people saying dot, dot, dot. In fact, when I'm writing on the board, I often say dot, dot, dot. But that is not the actual name of the punctuation mark. Does anybody know? It's called an ellipsis. Right. So an ellipsis is a series of dots. It's a series of 3 dots. Alright, so just be careful when you're writing an ellipsis that you don't write dot, 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 that you limit yourself to 3 of them. Good. The next punctuation mark I want to point out is highlighted in green. It's called a semicolon. And you see those 2 dots on top of each other. The reason there's a semicolon there is because we're going to list your options. Alright, caves can be difficult to find. That's the statement that they want you to work with. And the important part is to understand the second part in blue, at the best of times. I'm sure you had difficulty understanding this question if you were unsure of that part, at the best of times. So let's have a look. The best way is to do a process of elimination. Caves are sometimes difficult to find. Okay, that could be an option. Caves are never difficult to find. Now that's impossible because you know that caves might be easy to find or they might not. Caves are always easy to find. Again, that's questionable. So it's definitely not B or C. Right, let's look at D. Caves are usually difficult to find. Now I'm going to go with D because of that last phrase, at the best of times. Alright, so caves are usually difficult to find. Caves can be difficult to find at the best of times. Now, I hope that you didn't just write A or a B or a C or a D, but that you've tried to word it in a sentence. They might say to you, write the letter only, but if they don't, then they want you to word it as a sentence. So you could word a sentence like this. You can put the question in the answer. See the quotation? Means that caves are, and it's always a good idea to write the letter so that it's easy to find with the marker. D, usually difficult to find. So you get 1 mark for choosing the correct answer. You can give yourself a mark if you've got D, but just keep in mind that you should word it in a sentence unless they ask just for the letter. 9. Based on what happened, would you describe the group as irresponsible? Can you see those quotation marks or inverted commas around irresponsible? It's there because we are going to say whether they are or not. It's questionable whether they are irresponsible or not. So based on what happened, that means you're going to be using information from the text, not from your imagination. And you're going to describe. They want you to explain in 2 complete sentences. They want to know if the hikers were irresponsible or not. So you have to say yes, you think they're irresponsible, or no, you don't think they were irresponsible. You must answer in full sentences. If you have not answered, then you need to go and adjust your sentence. In this case, any opinion is valid. They said, would you? That means that you're going to state your opinion, but you can only get marks if you justify it. You must base your answer on information that you learned from the text. Right. So, if you said yes, yes, I would describe the group as irresponsible. Can you see how I put the question in the answer? Yes, I would describe the group as irresponsible. Now you will put the rest in your own words. But here's an idea. You could have said something like, because they didn't check the weather report, they should not have gone hiking at that time of the year, they should have done such and such, or they should not have done such and such. You could have also worded it by saying, yes, I think that. You could have said no. If you said no, again, you could put the question in the answer. No, I would not describe the group as irresponsible because. Please don't start simply by jumping straight into your justification. You need to say whether you agree or not, and then you need to put part of the question in the answer, and then you need to justify. You could have said something in your own words. Here's some examples. You could have said you think that they handled the situation wisely. The fact that they were all experienced hikers, they didn't just go on a whim. They knew the potential dangers. You could have mentioned that they were prepared because they knew the area well. It was not their first time hiking in the area. And because they packed food, water, fuel, clothes, and other equipment. Now, I've put those into my own words, but you could also prove it further by quoting from the text. That's absolutely perfect. So you need 2 sentences to justify. You don't get a mark for answering yes or no. You get a mark for 2 sentences, half a mark each, explaining your justification. All right, 10. Choose any 4 of the words in bold and explain what they mean. Okay, you can use your own words. They don't want you to look it up in the dictionary. If they did, they would ask for a dictionary definition. You can use a dictionary to look up words, but if they ask for your own words, you need to then put it into your own voice. You need to define the word so that the meaning is clear. In this case, they're not asking you to put the word in a sentence to demonstrate its meaning like they sometimes do. They just want a pure definition explaining the meaning. So they gave you a few words. You can choose any of the 4. You'll see that they're in bold because they stand out more than the others. I'm going to explain what each of these words mean, and I'd like you to take note of what they mean, even the ones that you didn't answer, so that we can grow your vocabulary. Experienced. So you would have put this into your own words, but to be experienced means that a person has great knowledge or skill from having much experience. So these hikers were experienced. Escarpment. You may or may not have learned this before in geography. An escarpment is a steep slope at the edge of a mountain. Foreboding. We'll meet this word again in grade 7. Foreboding is a sense or a feeling that something bad is about to happen. Obscured. If something is obscured, it means that it's not easy to see. Right? It might be covered up with fog, or it might be unclear. Right? Ration. To ration means to share something out in small amounts. So if you have only enough lunch to last you for the day, then you might want to eat part of it at first break, part of it at second break, and part of it after school. The amount allowed to each person is also called their ration. So the hikers, in fact, rationed their food, and each person was given a ration. Right, pooled. Pooled has nothing to do with swimming in this case. They're talking about their resources. If resources are pooled, they're all put together so that they can be shared. So in the text, the hikers pooled or put together their resources and then shared them amongst each other. You might have heard it in the word carpool. Right, number 11. Each text has a particular style and a format. So, for example, a fantasy novel is written using a different style and format to a job application. All right. So that first part, they're not asking a question. They're simply stating a statement which will help you to understand what's to come. So 11.1 asks you to identify this type of text. Identify means to name. So they want to know what kind of text. Okay, in this case, you could have said a few things. You could say the text is non-fiction. You could have said it's factual or that it's based on facts. You could have said it's a personal account. You could have said that the text is a first-person narrative. Now, even if you didn't use these words yourself, I want you to just take note of them because you can use them in many contexts. All right, so if you've said any of these things, you can give yourself a mark. All right, we're almost at the end, so we're going to push on through. 11.2. Identify 4 key features of this type of text. 4, so it's for 2 marks and it's they want 4, so you'll know it's half a mark each. Key features. Right? Key features are the important parts or the important things that define it and this type of text. So there's a few things you could say. You could have said it's written in the first person. You could have worded it as this is a first person narration, or that it's written from the first person perspective. You could have mentioned that it's the tense, that it's written in the past tense. You could have said it has a plot like a story, the beginning, a middle, and an end. You could have mentioned the fact that it has a title, that it's written in paragraphs. So can you see that there's many different features? Just like a face has features that define it, you could have mentioned any of those things, and they're half a mark each. 11.3. Summarize the main idea of the text in one sentence. So just to remind you, a summary is short and to the point. It's focused and mentions the most important ideas only. This is very important because you're only going to write one sentence to summarize that whole long text. You need to use your own words and you need to stick to one sentence only. Right, here's my example. Experienced hikers get trapped in the Drakensberg Mountains during a snowstorm. It needs to be short, punchy, much like a headline. Okay, yours would have been in your own words, but just check that it's not too long and that you've limited yourself to one sentence, and then you can give yourself a mark. 12. The title plays an important role in the story. Now, the title is the name of the story, and the role is the job or part that it's playing in helping our understanding. So 12.1 asks, explain the meaning and effect of this title. The meaning is what is it about, what is it saying? And the effect is the title creates an impression. It gives a mood or an atmosphere. It will make you think or feel something even before you've read the text. So they want you to discuss the title in general. They want you to talk about anything that you've noticed it for. So there's a few things you could mention. You could have mentioned that the title uses figurative language. In fact, there's a metaphor in the title. Remember, it compares the mountain to a beautiful beast. You could have mentioned that the word beckoned was used, meaning that they felt drawn toward the mountain because of its beauty. And you could have even explained how the hikers were in awe of the beauty and the danger of the mountain, just as a person might be fascinated by a mythical beast. So as long as you explained and discussed the title, you can give yourself half a mark for each relevant observation. So that's 2 half marks. That means you'll only get 1 mark for that little discussion. 12.2. Which phrase in the story supports this? So you need to quote a group of words from the text that supports your previous answer. So I found one. Although we were aware of the risks, we decided to push on. Right. So just make sure that you've put quotation marks and that you should be able to explain or justify, if asked, why you've chosen that quote. You can't simply quote any random words from the text. It needs to make some kind of connection with the previous answer, and that is for 1 mark. Good. So you've made it. Nicely done. Make sure that you've made corrections, that you've elaborated on your answers, that you've made some extra notes on your book or on your piece of paper. In the next video, I'll give you a bit of guidance to help you with questions 13 and 14 of section A. If you haven't completed those ones yet, then give them a try before you watch the next video. They are on page 125 of your textbook. Good job. Keep going.